Good evening, everyone. I'm Dan Pulfus. I'm kind of a facilitator. If you know what that is, then we're great. If you don't, that's who I am. I'm here just to help discussion. I've been working with Ryle for about 5 months now, a little bit, helping just with the communications, putting things together. And that. I grew up about 15 miles from here. My grandpa's farm's about 10 miles from here in the Leeds Township. I worked next door in Fall River with those two. So back some years ago, yes, a couple of years ago, yes. And the last 20 years of my life, I've lived in Portage. 14 of those I was a superintendent of schools. I'm happy to be here. I care about kids, I care about schools. That's the main reason that I do this. And if I can help out the people here get the word out, because I think the information is important and the way it's presented, and so that you can get all the facts and make your decision. That's what it's about. So that's why I think everybody knows Mr. McGuire, I'm sure, but if you haven't met, that's Mr. Vetter over here to our right, the elementary principal. So both of those gentlemen will be doing the facts. I'll let them handle that. I'm here just to kind of tell the story of our, I say our because I'm very possessive about this, our district, the district.
Thanks, Dan. Tonight what we'd like to do is we'd like to give you the information concerning our upcoming referendum. What we'd like to do is we'd like to cover the following items. As we began the process, the board developed a set of beliefs that they are using to get out the word, to tell the community how they feel about the upcoming referendum and why we should be having the referendum. I'm going to read these because we are videotaping this, because we are going to be putting this up onto YouTube for folks who may be not able to get out to hear a referendum presentation such as this. It might be a way for them to get the information. So I apologize for reading, but I think it's important that we have them articulated for the folks who may not be here. The first one is that we believe an excellent school enhances the quality of life, adds to the culture, and strengthens the economic well-being of our community. The second one is we believe the Ryle Community School Board and administration are good stewards of the taxpayers' money. 3, we believe the budget we believe the budget emphasizes appropriate child-centered priorities. And number 4, we believe the referendum is necessary to maintain the standards of excellence for the students of this district. Number 5 is we believe that a further reduction of staff or programs would prohibit the Ryle Community Schools from providing a quality education that students deserve. 6, we believe it is our responsibility to balance the best interest of the children and the taxpayers of our district. And 7, we believe that we need to upgrade and improve the district's technology to provide our students with the skills needed to be successful and competitive as in their future pursuits. So, as we look at the upcoming referendum, there's a number of things that impact our district finances. The one major thing that really has impacted our district finances are the revenue limits. And many of you know that revenue limits were established in 1993 as a way to keep our budgets intact, keep down the cost, lower the taxpayers' responsibilities. They were established back in 1993. But in 1992-93, in that budget year, that's where the limits were set. So if there were districts who were in a building project, or they were spending a lot of money during that year, their revenue limits were set at a much higher level than a district who was a low spending district. And Ryle was one of those districts. We were a low spending district. We were very conservative. We spent only what we needed to spend. But by doing that, our revenue limits were set at a much lower level than other school districts. Other things that have impacted our revenues back in 2011-12, during the Act 10 legislation, our district was coming to an end of a 3-year referendum. So in the last year, at the 2011-12 year, we lost $560,000 right there because our revenue cap exemption referendum ended. And then we lost an additional $230,000 in reductions from categorical aids, from general aids, and from revenue cap reduction. So you can see in that 1 year, our district lost an awful lot of money due to the Act 10 and our revenue cap exemption ending. The good news is in March last year, we burned our mortgage. We became debt-free as far as long-term building debt. We became debt-free. So as we've had the revenue limits and we've looked at budget cuts to stay within our limits, the district has made these cuts over the year. Again, I'm going to kind of go through them. The middle school, high school principal's position was eliminated. We lost a local music teacher, a physical education teacher, 4.75 teacher aide positions, an 80% guidance position, driver's ed, a curriculum coordinator, a half-time custodial. Our distance learning, there was a foreign language program. We had reductions in instructional supplies and textbooks, and we also reduced the time of our athletic director. So, as you can see, for our small district, we've made a number of cuts over the years. Now, let's talk about referendum histories. And I went back to 10 years, and the reason why I put 10 years is because that's the time I've been here. Okay, and in that time, we've run several referendums. In 2003, 2004, we ran a referendum for $1 million, and that was for buildings. That was to improve our heating and ventilating systems. We did some drainage improvements at the elementary, on the roof. We did a number of improvements to help our buildings become more energy efficient. We also had a $375,000 referendum to exceed the revenue limits for 3 years. And at the end of the 3 years, we had saved enough money. When we went out and we levied this referendum, we only levied what we needed. And in this referendum and in the next one, we were able to extend those referendums because we received some additional revenues that we were not expecting. During this time, we had the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, the ARA monies, that were given to us to help support our staffs. And also, if you remember back during that time, we also had a couple of winters that were pretty mild. I mean, as a matter of fact, this morning I was listening to the weather forecaster, and he was making mention that a year ago at this time, we were in the 80s. Okay, so we budgeted for heavy cold winters, didn't have those heavy cold winters, so that money, along with the money that we saved by using our money, that went into our fund balance to help carry us out to another year. In this case, we went out 4 years. The referendum history for the 2008 referendum, which we finished 2 years ago, we had 3 years. It was a stair step. The prior one was $375 for 3 years. This one, we had a stair step. Again, we only levied what we needed to use. But again, during this time, as I said, we had some ARA monies, there were some Job Act monies, again, the warm winters. That helped us save some additional money, which we were, again, able to place into fund balance and use to help fund this school year. So it now has been 2 years since the last referendum as we come out for this one. This 3-year referendum is again a stair-step model, looking at a different amount each year for 3 years. And as a part of this fund, a part of this referendum, $150,000 of each year's monies will go towards technology. I'm going to ask Mr. Vedder if he would talk about our technology needs.
Okay, for my part of the presentation, I'm going to talk about why is technology a focus in this referendum. 4 points up here on the board. The first point being, our students today are leaders tomorrow. Our kids today are wired differently. Okay, they learn differently than we do. Technology has always been there. It's just natural to them. And for us as educators, the world we're preparing them for have very few jobs that don't involve some type of technology. So, as we prepare our students to go on to college or into the workforce, those employers and colleges are looking for young people who have the 21st century skills of critical thinking, problem solving, communication in various formats, collaboration, creativity, technology skills, financial literacy. However, in order to do that, we have to have and utilize up-to-date technology in order to give our students a greater chance to succeed in the future, because if we provide that technology, we'll be able to develop those skills right here in our buildings. Point number 2, what do we currently have? Yes, we have taken some steps forward this school year in the area of technology. Money was put into, it was invested into putting new computers in the elementary lab. We also put wireless access in both buildings. And just recently we gave all of our students email accounts. So we're taking steps forward. However, the reality is the computers that we have here in the middle school, high school lab, the mobile carts in both buildings, and the desktop computers that all of our staff members are using are getting out of date. They need to be replaced. And the way technology has been purchased in the past in the district has been, it's done as a matter of there's money left over at the end of the fiscal year, and if there's some money to spend, we spend it on technology. And for that reason, we would like to see that practice change and have money earmarked towards technology. Point number 3, what will we be able to do with more technology? Well, by increasing the amount of technology, we're not just trying to obtain more stuff. That's not the point. What we're going to do with that technology is we're looking to enhance and transform the educational instruction that takes place. As a parent, personally, I have seen this happening in the schools my own children attend. When elementary teachers are working with a small group of students, other students in the classroom could be on computers or some type of device where they're working on math facts like 10 mark, on a website like 10 marks or extra math. In a classroom where technology is at their fingertips, a second grader, believe it or not, is capable of producing an iMovie, and then about the science unit that he just completed. When my second grade son showed me his iMovie, it was a real revelation, because I could look at him and see, here's a second grader who's not just sitting in the classroom consuming information, he can now produce information that I was able to view on YouTube and share with other people. When my daughter's 4th grade class read in a science book about some guy named Frank Lloyd Wright and some home he built called Falling Waters in Pennsylvania, her teacher was able to go right to the smart board because they wanted to learn more about this. They wanted to see a picture of the house. Boom, couple clicks, within a minute, you're able to see pictures of the home inside and out. Also learn more about Frank Lloyd Wright himself. As a freshman, my son has had a netbook that was provided to him by the school district. Using Skype, he did collaborative homework with other freshmen in this class. And my wife and I were just floored one night when he's actually sitting there on Skype trying to figure out which field is going to produce the best yield of corn, doing this all together with his classmates, and it just goes to show you, they learn differently. Using an app on an iPad, my son's teacher just recently recorded his voice and his work on an iPad. Then that teacher was then able to email that to my wife and I, which we could then see our son working through a problem in class from that day where he was trying to figure out the missing add-in to an addition problem. So as we watched that, we were able to see, same day, within a matter of hours, what our son is good at, what he needs to work on, and how we could help him that day. So as a parent, I'm very pleased that my children are able to take part in these types of digital learning experiences. If we were able to provide these types of digital learning experiences to our students here in Rio, we would be expanding their time and place of learning. We're also increasing the depth of their learning. I do want to be clear, though, that technology is great. Technology will never replace great teachers, but it will help our teachers to do a better job in preparing our students for the future. So number 4, how will curriculum resources and assessments be impacted by technology? It's important to point out right now, textbook developers are moving away from your traditional textbook and towards digital resources in the future. So we need to be able to have the technology in order to provide our students with that up-to-date programming. Another important point is the WKC test, the state tests as we know them, they'll be gone soon. In the 2014-2015 school year, they'll be replaced by the Smart Balance assessments. Those assessments will be done online. They'll be much more rigorous. There'll be items on there where kids might be asked to go out online, listen to a podcast. They might have to read a resource, watch a video, and then come back into the test and actually write a paragraph comparing and contrasting that information. When they have to do items like that, we have to provide them with reliable technology in order to be able to do well on these tests. So I would say for that the reasons I've shared, up-to-date and reliable technology, it's really not a luxury, it's a necessity right now in this day and age. We do need to prepare our students for the future, but trying to give them the best digital learning experience we can right now. I'll move on to the next slide here. For this part, I'm just going to briefly go over our 3-year plan as far as what would be done. During that first year, what we would be looking to do is we would try to provide some type of digital learning tool, like a laptop, that would be purchased for all of the staff members in the district. We would also be looking to provide 2 sets of approximately 24 digital learning tools. And when I say that, I'm talking like laptops, iPads, something like that. That would be purchased for the elementary building. And we would also be looking to purchase enough digital learning tools to provide them for 2 grade levels here at the middle school, high school building. We'd also be looking to put interactive whiteboards, such as smart boards, approximately 5, into each building. We also have recognized that we're going to need to spend money on replacement of the marker boards. We have blackboards in the elementary building. Projectors, professional development, which is big, wiring, and more IT support. During the second year of the plan, once again, we'd be looking at 2 more sets of approximately 24 devices for the elementary building. We'd also be looking to provide some digital learning tools for we'd be looking to do 3 grade levels for here at the middle school, high school building. And then also continue on with putting more interactive whiteboards such as smart boards into the buildings, more professional development, and of course more IT support. And during the third year of the plan, we're just kind of continuing on. This year, during that year, we'd be looking to add more, another 2 sets of 24 devices to the elementary building, and then 3 more devices for 3 more grade levels here at the middle school, high school building. And then once again, we'd have to continue with professional development and IT support. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we would be doing with the money. that we would be earmarking towards technology.
Great, thanks, Mr. Vetter. You know, I was listening to Mr. Vetter talk about what his kids have used already in their experience in his school district. I was thinking about where my kids are. I've got a child now who's in college, and the expectation in the use of technology is certainly more, I'll say, than when I was in college. Yeah, okay, no, actually, there were no computers when I was in college. Yeah, okay. Or there were computers, but they were used for the math guys. Okay?
Electric typewriters.
Well, yeah, so typewriters, that was our technology. But as I look at what my daughter does and what my son is doing currently in Rio High School for the use of technology, we need to keep moving down that road so we are able to prepare them for what they will be facing. So if you think about it, the jobs that we are now trying to prepare our kids for, they're not there. We don't know exactly what they're going to be expected to do, but we do know that there's going to be technology tied to it. So as we look at our 3-year referendum, okay, the question is always, how is it going to impact me? Okay, what I'm showing here are mill rates for the past few years, and what I'd like to show here, and that's supposed to be red. Those are the 2 years where our referendum came off the tax rolls, and we lost the money through Act 10. That was in this year. And this year, our taxes went down again, one, because we don't have any building debt any longer, any long-term debt. But the board also chose to use what we have saved in our fund balance to help fund this year's budget, to give maybe the taxpayers an opportunity, a little bit of relaxation from having to pay the taxes. But as we look at the next 3 years, you'll see that our levy rates will increase with each of the year's referendum.
Can I get a?
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't want to interrupt, but
go right ahead, please do.
He's taking a note. I'm going to make a political statement that these guys should be afraid to do. But my political statement is, this process started 20 years ago, 1993, and it worked. It controlled taxes. It really did. We got more state aid. They said they're going to control how much everybody got paid, and the third tool of that is you only can set so much for taxes. The only way you can raise it on a local level, it used to be up to the local school board, you have to go out on referendum. That's why this was. If all things were like they used to be, and you had a prudent school board trying to respond to both the needs of the teachers, the students and the taxpayers, you'd probably have a much more level, right around $1,200. You can do the math there and look at that, and it would be leveled off year to year, and that's what it used to be like. But because of what you're forced to do now under this law, which we are not going to change, nobody's going to have the guts to change this, I'm going to say that. So the only answer is always to keep coming back to you, the people, the voters, and ask permission. And I kind of like it in some ways, because if you say no, they can come back again and again and ask you, but eventually it's going to be less. So, but by saying yes, then they can keep going in the way they are currently doing.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Paulson. One thing I guess I failed to mention, this is what we call a non-recurring 3-year referendum. And that's always one of those terms that really confuse people. What does non-recurring mean? And it's very simple. It means that this referendum ends in 3 years. And at the end of that 3 years, the board has to decide. Will they go out for a referendum again? Will they try to, if we have money in fund balance, to use that to fund the district for a while? But 3 years, that is it. Non-recurring means that it ends, because there's a specific time period. So, referendum. Is the referendum going to be a benefit to the community? I'm saying yes, because I think we provide a solid education for our kids. I mean, if you look at this, we showed a video a little bit ago, and you look at the folks that were there, They all came from Iowa, and we have successful folks leaving our high school and becoming successful in their careers. So I think we do provide a good, solid education to our students who come through here. Second, a school district in a town provides higher property values. A school district also helps to help businesses thrive, excuse me. And second, and lastly, the school district is in the center of what happens in a small town like Ryle. Tonight's a very good example. As you walked in, the gym was being used because we had the academic bowl, the Trailways Conference Academic Bowl was being held here, so we had 8 different schools who here participating in that. Our middle school gym was being used for track practice and later on for AAU practice, AAU basketball practice, pardon me. Our elementary school gym, cafeteria was being used tonight for a youth wrestling banquet, and I believe your gym was also being used.
For basketball practice.
For basketball practice. So you can see in Ryle, the schools really, truly are the center of our community. So as we think about where we're going, we see that the referendum is something that we need to help continue doing what we do. And that is what I believe is provide a solid education to our kids. We need help in maintaining those programs. We, as Mr. Vetter has pointed out, we need additional monies through the referendum to help support our technology. Technology, as we've talked about, is becoming an integral part of what we do. It used to be kind of a fluff. Okay, you're gonna, you may go down to the computer lab and do something. Now it's expected that our kids know how to use and incorporate technology. And I like what Mr. Vetter said. Our kids are now going to be producers of their learning, not just consuming. And I think that's why we need to get this referendum out to you, get the information out to you, and ask you to do one thing. And that's my final slide. Do that. If there's nothing else that I ask you to do, is to exercise your constitutional right and go out and vote on April 2nd. So now, this, like your thumb there, Kathy. So this is the time, if you have questions, we shall be happy to answer them for you. Excuse me. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. How much was gained already from the cuts that have been made? Because it seems to me with all the different things that have been cut, it would easily be equivalent to 150,000 or more.
I would say over the years, it's been more than.
If you added up all those positions, I think you'd be approaching between $250,000 and about $350,000 if you added up what they would cost you in today's
money.
Yeah. Yeah, the one little thing, and we will take all the questions, but you're gonna vote with your head, your heart, and your pocketbook. We all do. That's when we make every decision. We look at all kinds of those things. But you can't let any one of them to oversway all the rest. I mean, this is an emotional thing. We hope that everybody votes. That's number one, is to get out and vote. That great participation is important to all this. But I wanted to elaborate just on a few things listening, because I get the inside story of this because I've been attending a lot of school board meetings. But I think insanity runs in my family. My dad was 18 years a board member, my mother 19 years a substitute, and 10 years as a one-room school teacher. I don't know what's wrong with this. But anyway, back to the devices he was talking about. What the eventual goal, correct me if I'm wrong, is that every student would have something that they could go to eventually.
That they could use, yes.
That they could use as a source of technology. Because right now, what you get is an uneven playing field, with some kids having lots of resources and some with none, and then how do you make that balance? This would even that all up. They would not own them, but they would be expected to be responsible for them.
That is correct.
There'd be some kind of penalty if they're lost or broken. I don't know how it all would work out, that's their business. But anyway, that's just so you understand that part of it too. I think that's important. The other is that I look at the 3 years, or excuse me, the 10 years of mill rates. Again, when we project forward, just so you just understand this stuff, they're projecting values continuing to drop. Not a lot, but a little bit. If they went up even a little bit, the amount or the mill rate would go the other way. So just so you understand that. This, when you project 3 years out, you're doing your best guess based on current facts. That's all they can do. Questions? There the guys with Rick.
Could you go back to that slide of the middle 3 years of referendum? The one that just finished?
That one?
No. That told about 295, 415
Oh, okay, way,
from 2008 to,
There it is.
that's the one.
yeah. Now, am I understanding correctly, you're asking for 450, 550, and 650
That's right.
now?
Mhm.
And of that, 150 is gonna go for technology.
Right.
So in effect, for operating costs, you're asking for 300, 400, and $500 for operating costs.
That would be correct.
From 2003 to 2006, you asked for $375,000 each year. And with this referendum, and that was all for operating costs.
That's
With
correct.
this referendum, you would be getting $75,000 less than in 2003 for operating costs. You would be getting about $25,000 more than 2004 for operating costs. And about $85,000 more now than in the last referendum, the last referendum. So it almost begs the question is, are you asking for enough?
I think we are, because what has happened since those referendums is Act 10.
Yeah,
And we don't pay all of the health insurance. We do not pay all of the WRS, Wisconsin Retirement System. And those savings to us, whether we like to admit it or not, those were savings to us, have really reduced our budget.
but your governor also reduced the amount of money that they gave you. So isn't that kind of a wash?
For us, the $230,000 is what we kind of saved from that. And so as much as I don't want to say, it did help us. But
The
as
taxpayers would say. I wouldn't say your employees.
no, help the taxpayers. Thank you, Dan.
So,
Yeah.
taking out the cost of the technology, I believe that you're being frugal in what you're asking for in operating costs.
I believe we are. Thank you, I do. Patty?
What happens after the 3 years and the technology that you've purchased, say the first year, is now out of date? What you see, I mean, as soon as somebody gets an iPad, next week that one's out of date and you gotta have something else because this software, this won't work on it and that sort of thing. So are you gonna come back to us again in 3 years and we're gonna start this whole process all over again?
That would be a decision of the board, but I would say yes. Because once we start this, we can't stop. We're gonna have to continue. Because we know, you're absolutely right, Patty, there's gonna be changes in technology. We don't know what's coming. That's why the board wanted to look at 3 years as a starting point. Once we put devices in the students' hands, we're gonna have to continue that. So I guess I would say, and again, that's a board decision, that it would be coming back out and saying, okay, now we need X number of dollars because this is what we need to continue to go forward.
But it'd also be fair to say that if we're putting smart boards into the rooms during these 3 years, that's not something you would be putting,
No.
because they'd all be there. Putting projectors into the rooms, they'd all be there. The wiring is all there. You'd just be looking more likely to be looking at just the devices, and replacing those.
Are you looking to buy or lease?
Buy,
For the most part.
for the most part, yes.
But back beyond that, there will be some indirect savings, but you know how companies, they're never gonna lose a lot of money. The textbooks are gonna go to be in e-textbook, just like e-books. They're gonna be e-textbooks, if they aren't already, in many cases, there'll be many, many more of doing that. They'll charge, don't worry, for that service, but maybe a little less than getting the big heavy books, the anthologies and all of the other things like that. But you're right, and the other is maintaining those, that's the other, is that you want to, they'll have to be every so often taken care of. Although, you know, with your cell phone, most of them now, it's cheaper to throw them out than to try to get them fixed anywhere. But there will be some of that recycling going on and all that, but I think, you know, this is the way it's going to be. I mean, it's just an expectation. Many of the universities, some of the private universities, are handing laptops to the kids as they walk in as part of their tuition. So,
Can I answer that question too, just a little bit from our time spent, Patty, and the board? It's a great question. We spent a lot of time examining, exploring a recurring question, referendum question, related to technology. Have that just occurring into the future almost indefinitely. And through a lot of exploration, a lot of advice, a lot of different scenarios, decided to go with one question here, written this way, to really focus on technology as such an important part, because we do believe that's very important. And then we were just very cognizant of coming out of the economy and looking at equalized value here in Wisconsin in the rural areas. The best predictions say it will be coming up a little bit. I think we're starting to see some signs of housing restarting, stock market even as we speak today. Some of the economy signs are coming up, and equalized value, which a lot of our tax rate then would ultimately be based on, will certainly be a bit friendlier to and more palatable to the community here to support. So we spent just a lot of time talking about the best way to answer that very question, because you're exactly right. You start down here, there really is no stopping, and it's only fair to every class if we start the procedure to make sure we have the resources there to let the next class get underway as we come down to individualized technology.
and I would also just add, in business, they have replacement cycles. You will have a replacement cycle, is what they're really talking about here of all this. The problem with schools, and I would say that this won't change, is our replacement cycles tend to be a lot longer than most businesses, but they are there, and that's what, just like textbooks. You know, some of the most affluent schools may replace textbooks in the old days. We're talking almost antique now, kids, and I'm sorry. I talk with them, and again, I'm joking here, but the textbooks are going to become a thing of the past, but some schools stretched them 10 years, and some did them every 5 years, depending on how affluent the school district was. But most schools had to stretch longer than shorter. That's a fact. That's the same with this technology, I suspect.
And Dan, to add on to that, in the private sector, business world, where I come from, we would be accruing money all along every year for capital purchases and taking advantage of depreciation of what we presently have on taxes to even accrue more. And we can't do that here.
School is in the present time only.
Exactly. And while we're at here, Mark, I think it's fair to go back to the tax rate page and make sure we point out that the numbers here, I think it goes without saying, we better say it, where we had the mill rates.
Oh, I don't remember one way.
Nope, I think one after there. The amounts in the right column here, of course, are just the school tax portion of your property tax. Remember, on top of this would be township, village, depending on where you live, county taxes, and
MATC.
MATC, yeah, your tech school taxes. So this is just the effect on school rates, okay? I think that's just important we point that out.
Great, thank you. Other questions?
In the last two referendums, they were 3-year, non-recurring referendums.
Correct.
And I believe you stretched that out to 4 years.
One time we went 4, and this last time we went to
5.
Oh, we went 5 years out, sorry.
Okay, and this last time you achieved that by spending down fund balance.
That's correct.
And I believe that's what we did with the first one also.
That is correct.
And going back to how much you're asking for this time, the fund balance has now been lowered, so going out 3 years from now, the likelihood of having much in fund balance to stretch it out again would be there or wouldn't be there?
Our hope is that if, not knowing what the future holds, Right now, we're budgeting with the state budget giving us no money. Now, the budget, going through the budget process, if we get, some additional money into the revenue caps, then there's some money there that we can maybe place into the fund balance. We have some more warm weather, we can do that. I mean, I guess the best thing we would hope that we could do that. But on the other hand,
What if you need a new roof?
if we would need a new roof, we'd probably have to come out.
Separate.
That'd have to be a separate referendum. We might be able to look at the Energy Act 32, which is the Energy Act, that we may be able to use some of that money to put a new roof on, because we are going to be looking at new roofs. In this building specifically, it was 1989 when they replaced this roof. I think you might have been on board at the time. And that we are now looking and seeing some of the, the age of the roof. And but I think we've done a pretty good job of keeping that intact. But a roof is definitely a possibility.
Well, something we didn't talk a lot about, but if there's really solid support for this referendum this time around in the community, you can just feel that it's coming solid because they start to understand how this all has to work. You don't have to tax the full 12.94 mils. If 12.5 mils generates enough to supply the school, they can do that. But with just what you were talking about, and I like that, is that you're already thinking, instead of letting this lull go down, even though they could do this and it was the right thing to do under the circumstances, what you do is get this bounce effect that people say, well, gee, why when I look at this compared to this, it doesn't seem so good. But if you can lower that a little bit, that impact, then maybe it's easier to sell the next one too. So that's all part of what can happen. It's up to the school board and administration to decide that.
And Rick, from what we've been looking at lately, just did some stuff on the roof. It is a when, not if, the roof is replaced. I mean, we just have been keeping an eye on it, had some good pictures taken, some really good information provided on where some maintenance needs to be, and it is really just a matter of time.
The building and grounds director was telling me that.
Yes, yes. It's a when, not an if.
So you're saying there will be another referendum for the roof?
I think we have to wait till we get to that point. Because the Act 32, which is the Energy Act, we may be able to use some of that legislation to help. If we can prove that by putting on a new roof, we may be able to, and save energy, we may be able to use, that legislation to help us out. We're still hoping that roof's going to last us for a while.
When you say a while, are we talking a year, 2 years, 5 years?
Yes.
I know it's
It's one of those things. What we have done over the past few years is we've had a maintenance agreement with a roofer who's come in on a regular basis to help maintain the roof. Unfortunately, that person has retired, and we're still trying to find somebody to do that. But we're also, this summer, the board has talked about having a roofer come in and taking care of some of the, I don't want to say, but some of the roof issues to help expand the life of this. But if you think about it, 1989, and we're now in 2013, that roof has really lasted a long time. I think it was supposed to last 12 or 15 years, or 20?
No, it was probably
15 years, and here we are. It's gone a long way. So.
And Jerry, is really some flashing right now specifically that I think we learned about here to really get professionally maintained and done, and we should be able to buy some time on some flashing that really is in need of some attention.
Other questions? Okay, I'm going to ask a question. What happens if this doesn't pass? Okay. On the back of this, it's the very last question. What happens if the referendum fails? What happens if the referendum fails? The board will have to make a decision. This year we have used our savings from the past few years where we've been able to put something, what we call fund balance, and that's kind of, I would equate that to a savings account. As you all would look at it, it's really not a savings account because we don't always have the money, but it's where we show in our accounting that that's where we have money set aside for additional years. I think the board would do that and come back out to you all and say, we need this referendum, and we need this referendum. And to the point where we probably would have expended our fund balance, and then, then we're gonna have to look at, okay, what's the next thing? Does it mean that we consolidate, we dissolve, whatever. But whatever happens, some people think if we don't have a school district, that you don't have to pay school tax. That is a misnomer. No matter where you live, you will pay a school tax. And many of the surrounding school districts have higher tax levies than Ryle does. So you may, if we were to dissolve or to consolidate, your properties could be moved into another district where you would actually pay higher taxes than what you're paying here in Ryle.
And it may not be as nice of a district.
It may not be as nice a district.
Certainly be longer travel.
Longer travel for the students. I go right with this because it really hit me as I thought about this in the last week. There's a big difference from the first years of this referendum. Any referendum when the cost controls went into effect, because the last is you either consolidate, dissolve, or I like to use the term disintegrate. You make your school lousy. Now, who would choose that? But really, 50-to-1 class sizes, roofs that leak. My wife visited a school, or was working in CISA 5 and went to a school in the CISA back now, this is about 20 years ago, where they had 13 buckets in one room, and it had been that way for 2 years. It's not that it just happened. 2 years. They wouldn't spend the money in that district. They didn't have the money to re-roofs. They couldn't pass anything. The difference now is not just that you need your own people to support this, but people have what's called choice. So you get a double whammy. All the parents that are able to get their kids to a different district. So now you bring down the numbers even more, making it harder and harder to have course offerings, be efficient at any scale, and it's a domino effect in the negative. And you certainly, no one that takes pride in this community, in this school, and cares about the kids would want that to happen. But that's the choice business is something new in the last 10 years. That first it was just a trickle, and now in many cases it can become a flood in a direction, especially if the school didn't stay at the quality that it is.
Thank you. Yes, Jerry?
Is there an organization outside of the school authorities that's now promoting this referendum or not?
I really don't know that, to be perfectly honest with you.
We're not aware of it.
I'm not.
And I guess didn't finish my thought completely before Patty and others here. That we came to this one question, obviously, that incorporated both tenets of what we're trying to do, asking to increase the limits on the revenue cap to, again, continue ongoing programming and technology, just into one question. We hope the language is very, very simple, and didn't want to get, if I can use the word greedy, and go past 3 years for the sake of confusion. That's why we did keep it one question and non-recurring. Just thought that was at this point in time, economy and everything, the simplest thing to do, and continue to examine during the course of the next 3 years, be preparing for what might be, if there's room for extension again, what happens with some of the equalization aid, what happens with any categorical or other state aid coming, and maybe after the first year and a half already, be prepared, more vigilance to be prepared to keep the technology going, because that has to almost continue a very steady journey. We don't want to have herky-jerky type years with some technology being able to supply and not. Really have to be proactive mid-cycle, I believe, in this 3-year time span. So, wanted to just finish that thought.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else have any other questions tonight? Again, I have one thing to ask you to do, and that's this.
I guess I'd even say one more. Talk to your neighbor. Talk to your neighbor.
I'd like to thank you for coming. Thanks for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. Spread the word. And if anybody has any questions, one, we're gonna post this YouTube. I know it's gonna be kind of long, but we're gonna post it there so people can get the information, but if not, have them call the board, or Mr. Vetter or myself would be happy to answer your questions.
And I said I preach on about 30 Sundays a year, and one of the things that why the congregations like me is we're done in under an hour.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good to see you, Jerry.
Yeah.